Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Community Services Commission meeting. I called this regular meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Commissioner Barantes, can we please have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Mei Ling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barantes? Commissioner Cabot?
Here.
Commissioner Dong?
Present.
Vice Chair Sher?
Present.
Chair Horta?
Present. Okay, moving on to the approval of agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? Hearing none, the agenda order is approved. We will now have a few announcements by Community Services Manager Matthew Morales-Stevens.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on our YouTube channel. If you wish to address the Community Services Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Mei Ling Sui. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive Community Services Commission agendas, please email your request to cscommission@sgch.org.
Thank you, Matthew. Item number 2, public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Community Services Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Community Services Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. Mei Ling, do we have any public comments for tonight's meeting?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, action items, approval of the minutes. The minutes are a record of the official actions taken at the Community Services Commission meeting on June 5th, 2023. Matthew, do we have any comments on the action item?
We do not.
The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Community Services Commission regular meeting of Monday, June 5th, 2023?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mei Ling.
Commissioner Barantes?
Here?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Commissioner Cabot?
Yes.
Commissioner Dong?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sher?
Yes.
Chair Horta?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 5 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, Mei Ling. Item number 4, discussion items, commission reorganization. As part of the annual commission reorganization process, the commission will select the chair and vice chair for the Community Services Commission. Staff will present the options available to the commissioners before a vote is taken. Matthew, do we have any public comment on the action item?
We do not.
Thank you. The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Matthew, will you walk us through the process, please?
Of course, thank you. So for the selection of the chair, you have a couple options. You can choose to keep your current chair. You can nominate another person. Regardless of who you nominate, they will have to accept the nomination for the commission to take a vote tonight. So for example, if I were to nominate Mei Ling would then have to accept the nomination. If she were to say she doesn't want the job, then we would continue through the process. Now, let's say there's 2 or more commissioners that are nominated. We would go in order, we would take the vote in order of who was nominated first and run it that way. So if Mei Ling was nominated first, we would take the vote on Mei Ling, and then if the majority wasn't received by Mei Ling, then we would move on to myself, for example. With that said, does anyone have any questions before we jump right into it?
None?
Oh, okay, excellent. Excellent. And then just as a note, the term is typically for a year. It can vary depending on when new commissioners rotate in or out. We typically try to do the reorganization at the time of the appointment of new commissioners, but it doesn't always quite work out that way, but on average, it should be about a year term. All right, so with that said, we'll move on to the selection of the chair. The floor is now open for nomination for the selection of chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
I nominate Commissioner Shea for chair.
Do you accept?
Yes, I accept.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay. All right, hearing none, I close the floor to nominations and declare that Commissioner Shea is selected as chair by acclamation.
Congratulations.
All right, we will now turn the meeting over to you, Chair Shea, and allow you to conduct the remainder of the meeting, including the selection of vice chair.
Swap it.
Selection of the vice chair. The floor is now open for nominations for the selection of the vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Commissioner Duong for vice chair.
Do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Should I say it or Matthew? Okay, so Commissioner Duong has been nominated for vice chair. Right, congratulations. Okay. I missed all that. Okay, moving on to item 4B, discussion of the 2023 annual work plan. Commission members to continue working on the approved 2023 annual work plan. Matthew, do we have any public comment on this action item?
We do not.
The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Any commissioners wanted to start the discussion?
Yes, I will talk about, just the time I can talk about pool funding, because that's what I'm working on. Let's see. So this is about parks, and the main focus right now, since we've passed the point of the pickleball. Do you have a question? I'm working, since Kathy left, I'm working on the parks and primarily focusing on the pool, that we need a new pool, and Davis has agreed to share that commitment on here. So we'll work closely with Rebecca and whomever, and the staff on that, because that's a huge project. One thing that I did get help with, couple things. There was a Zoom meeting, I think Chair Zing was on that Zoom meeting with the PAC, where they talked about Norma Garcia, Gonzalez, LA County Parks. She talked about funding. What she suggested, and this is what's worked, and I brought this for everybody to see. It's a printout from Hilda Solis, and she was really helpful in getting a new aquatic center down in La Puente. And it's not just a pool, it's an aquatic center. Now, of course, we don't have that kind of room, but we do need a pool, we do need a new pool house, we need everything. We've tried grants in the past, we haven't been successful, but what she is saying is the best approach is what they call a lasagna approach, where you get layers of different commitments, and you can't just rely on one thing. And on this, I'll pass this out to people. I think I have enough for everybody. This was an email, I get her newsletter, and if you look at the bottom, of this, you'll see the different people who have put money into them getting an aquatic center, and there's 10. Not just one, it's 10. So what you do is you get somebody to commit, and you can say, okay, we have this much money, how much are you willing to commit? Grace Neapolitano is a representative. She's in Congress, she's retiring. So in our instance, we would reach out to Representative Judy Chu. And this is for discretionary funding when you're reaching for the government. There's Los Angeles County Regional Park and Open Space District. Prop 68, HMC Architects, they're probably the ones that design it, so they're putting money in there. Arts and Culture, I can't always read all of them. I think one is La Puente City. Public Works put money in. They're going to be providing the water, so they're going to put water in. And just an aside, the person who's on the water board for this, the main water board, is Charles Trevino. He is up for re-election this year, so it wouldn't hurt to tap him for some funds. So if you look at these, you see the different places they've requested funding for a pool. That way, you're not just relying on one source. And it might take a while, but you need to reach out and ask all these people. And that's what this Norma Garcia Gonzalez, she's with the LA County Parks District, and she spoke to this, I think it's a women's pack of some kind. And that's what she talked about, is how you get funding for these projects. And this was a big one. She said all parks need an assessment too, to see what they need for their community. The thing that I found disappointing is when I looked around at all the cities around us have been getting discretionary funding from state and federal and county politicians. You just have to ask, and we haven't been asking. The money is there, and we're leaving it on the table. You know, Monterey Park is getting a refurbished pool, and they're using ours in the meantime. All the towns around us are getting new swimming pools, and we need to be putting our hand out for that discretionary funding. And it's not going to happen all at once, but if you once get somebody to commit for, okay, I'll give you this much money, you can go to the next person and say, okay, we've got this much commitment, how much would you give? So that's what I learned at this Zoom meeting. She also talked, and I think Rebecca would probably know what these are, and Matthew too. She talked about Measure W and Measure A for parks and infrastructure. Do you know what those are? I'll tell you, I was writing notes so fast I couldn't keep up. But that apparently is something that works with getting funds for park infrastructure. And I think that's the main takeaway I took away from, if we're trying to get money for the pool, is think of lasagna and do layers of funding. Okay. That's my report on what I was working on.
Any other commissioners?
Not at this time.
I wanted to update on the part I was taking on. One is number 1C, develop an internship program for youth to assist with translation services. And I saw Matthew already throwing the finalized application and the flyer into the package. Do you mind explaining a little more about the program?
Of course. So it seems like everyone had the same idea. We met with a for-profit group for one of our senior programs, and they mentioned that another local city was doing a volunteer-based translation program. And they were like, had you ever thought of it? And I thought, well, actually one of our commissioners did. So it was kind of perfect. It seems like there's some cities that have a similar thought in mind, because there is such a high cost associated with written translation. So I appreciate you bringing it forward. And we're happy that we're able to get it off and running with your leadership. So right now we have it scheduled for Wednesdays, September 13th through December 13th, so essentially just the fall semester. And we'd be looking for volunteers that are ages 16 years of age and older. That's, while there might be some youth that younger than that would be great candidates, 16 is the threshold to volunteer on a continuous basis within the city of San Gabriel as of right now. So essentially what they would do is they'd come in for an hour or two every Wednesday. We right now have a vacant office space that hopefully will be vacant as a communal space for a little bit, where this person would be housed out of during that time so that they have a functioning computer and can translate our senior flyers, our Grapevine Press, which is the senior newsletter. So with a large focus on our senior marketing materials, and then there may be other things that are more seasonal, such as the Fall Fun Festival, for example. There may be certain posters or certain marketing materials that may need translation on a case-by-case basis. But typically, there's a lot of program flyers that need to be done that kind of will pop up out of nowhere, seemingly, and to just translate a flyer, it could be $100 per page, per language, so that can add up pretty quickly considering we offer a variety of programs throughout the year. So there's a flyer included in your packet to help recruit the volunteers. So assuming there's no additional edits, or if there are edits, we'll make those edits and then send it off to our public information officer to push it out via social media, our City Beat newsletter, and then we'll of course push it out through our department e-newsletter, and then we'll send it off at the district level. Right now, everyone's just kind of trickling back into the offices, I've noticed, at the school sites. So we don't want to kind of rush them with too much information. I've already sent a lot their way, so we'll probably wait about a week or two to start pushing it to the principals. Other than that, there is the application packet, and you'll notice it looks very similar to the Youth Ambassador program packet, just not quite as extensive as far as the requirements and what we're asking for them to submit. So there's a cover page that just outlines what the volunteer service would look like and what benefit they're receiving from it. So I'll just read it, the first 3 bullet points, which are kind of the most important. So that they would work directly with San Gabriel Community Services Department staff, gain experience working in a professional office environment, and give back to the community by increasing access to informational resources. So that tends to be the largest barrier to access to some of our programs, is if they can only read in Chinese or Spanish, and we're only offering the marketing materials in English, how are they going to know about the program, right? So if it's just our meal program, or if it's just our technology tutoring program, which maybe doesn't necessitate someone that speaks the language in person, there's no reason why we can't offer the marketing materials in these variety of languages to still attract them into the program. So that was the thought behind it. The selection process would be as simple as they would submit their application, they'd be expected to attend an orientation, and then from the orientation, assuming there's 15 people at the orientation, we won't necessarily be able to take in all of those volunteers, but it'll give us a good idea as to who's the most committed because they've taken the time to attend an orientation, how are their communication skills, why are they there at the orientation? Are they just there for service hours, or are they there to give back to the community and for service hours? So the orientation is to help kind of assess all of those items in a group setting and see how they would be a good fit for this particular volunteer position. And it's quite possible that one person or no one shows up to the orientation, but based off of the response that we've received from the technology tutoring program, I would anticipate that we'll have a pretty decent return on the applications, especially since the application's pretty short for this one. Page 2 has the actual application itself. It's just their personal information, that way we can contact them, and then a brief questionnaire. And the questions read, why do you want to volunteer with the Community Services Department? Please list any prior volunteer experience. List any written translation experience you possess, and then what activities or responsibilities have you been involved with at school and or outside of school, and list any clubs, roles, extracurricular activities, volunteering, work, or religious activities. And it's possible that they may have no to all of those, which is quite all right. The kind of backup to this program will be both staff and Commissioner Shea to provide the checking to their work, right? Because I don't speak any other language other than English, nor can I read it, so it doesn't make sense for me to look at it. I will not be of much use to double check their work. So it will take some time. They'll put everything together, and then we'll push it out to either staff or Commissioner Shea to review it, make any final edits, and then we'll push it back to either internal staff that are making the publications, or we'll push it back to the designer to implement into the design. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or if anyone has any suggestions as to how we can better approach this process, we'd be happy to hear those.
I just had one question in terms of languages that we're targeting. It says here Spanish, Mandarin Chinese. I know there's a population in San Gabriel that speaks Vietnamese. Unfortunately, I do not speak the language. Has there been any thought given to potentially recruiting volunteers? Obviously, it's the same concerns, right? Who would vet the application? Who would go through the materials with them? But just sort of a thought.
We would 100% love to add Vietnamese in there. We're just not at that point just yet. As you mentioned, we don't have anyone that would be able to vet that. I think there's 1 or 2 staff members on the citywide staff. I don't have anyone in our department that speaks Vietnamese or can read it. And one of the staff that I can think of off the top of my head is the assistant finance director. So we probably wouldn't be having her vet these as much as I'm sure she'd be willing to. We wouldn't be pulling on her for this at that time. But if, let's say, there is a staff member that joins us that does can vet that particular language, then we can certainly incorporate it at that time.
Or maybe if we have anybody, volunteer residents who wanted to like review those translations, so that will be another option. But for now, yeah, that's probably not something we can do at the moment. Any other questions?
Well, I would suggest maybe this kind of touches on one of the goals in our work plan in terms of broadening access. At the San Gabriel mission, there are services that are conducted in Vietnamese. It's a good place to place some flyers. Maybe you can talk to the priest and see if he knows of anyone who
I can tell you right now that I do know, because I have a parishioner that, well, we have our bulletin that's produced every week, and so we do have a Vietnamese translator. I don't know that they are San Gabriel City residents. Many of them live in Rosemead, but I do know that they absolutely would be willing to. I mean, they just helped me, well, in the process of helping me translate the museum interpretation to Vietnamese. So we do have resources. If you need them, we can most certainly call on them. I'd be happy to coordinate that.
That'll be
Stole my thoughts. Commissioner Duong stole my thought.
That'll be awesome. I wonder if it's something that we can incorporate in this application, where it has to be like in the next following programs application.
Well, we'd have to get a commitment from that person.
So possibly.
I think
for
there are
next-
1 or 2 that have lent themselves to translation services. Father Jerry, who was our Vietnamese, was the priest that really worked with the Vietnamese. He just left us. We do have a new priest, Father Anthony, but he doesn't have a strong command of the English language. So even I have to have someone help me communicate with him. But there are parishioners who can help us. So let me get that commitment going, and then I'll bring it to the commission.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Any other questions regarding the same issue? So I have some questions about the orientation. How exactly we're going to do about it? It's like they're going to be sitting down and we explain the program, where it sounds like we're going to be interviewing them as well to understand more about them.
So we'll run it similar. The idea was to run it similar to the technology tutoring orientation. And so we try to keep it as informal as possible. That way we can get a positive response from the youth. Typically, if we try to make things a little too formal, then they shut down a little bit too much, and then we're not making much progress with them. But usually it's an introduction on what the expectations of the volunteer would be, what they get out of it, and general information on the actual program. And then I'll do a couple icebreaker activities. If it's one person, it's probably not going to be an icebreaker activity. But if it's a handful of people, we'll try to do an icebreaker activity to see how they interact in a group atmosphere. And then also have some, like a Q&A section to see how they respond to that environment. And then tend to go around the room and have them share why they're there, right? So obviously they've included it in the application, but it's good to see, can they regurgitate everything that they've put on paper as well, and see how they might be a good fit for this particular volunteer position. And then we would come back to the drawing board and meet with you to determine who would be the best fit for this program. So again, if there's 15 people, it may only be 2 people, one in Spanish and one in Chinese, or 2 and 2, depending on what the end result is, and what their availability is, of course. So if one does every other week and vice versa, then that could work. But again, trying to be as informal as possible, but still trying to kind of weed all of that information out from them throughout the process. And usually it doesn't take any longer than about an hour.
Okay. So does any commissioners want to put in a formal interview with those applicants, or we can just let the department make the decision? Because I think that's what they did with the technology tutoring program, right? Yeah. 'Cause that's probably going to delay the process, and then I think they probably pretty experienced with the selection process already.
I agree.
Okay. So we'll probably just go from the orientation results then. All right. And then we're going to come back with the result to the commission on the next meeting. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tackle a couple of the items that I signed myself up for.
Yeah, go ahead.
1A, I think that when we first put the work plan together, we had decided that we were going to target information booths at all the different events, and then commissioners would join as they were able to. I know myself, I think we handled the Easter one, and then June came upon me real quick, so I have been out of the loop for a little bit, but was able to be in the booth for a National Light Out with Commissioner Brontes. So I think that not having the pop-up event was a good idea, kind of piggybacking with the rest of the events where we could see a lot of high traffic and be able to position ourselves in a booth. And I think I want to go back to the request that Commissioner Cabot had, or maybe it was Commissioner Shea, to have a banner that says Community Services Department, so that people can identify us.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I passed by the booth, and I hadn't met you yet, so I didn't know you were there, and I just saw a booth there in the corner. I was like, is that it? So no, I went back, and then I was like, where's the booth? So I went back, and I'm like, it had to be that, and sure enough it was. So yeah, that would definitely be helpful, not only for me, but everyone else to know as well.
Yeah, that's possible. That would be great. Item 1B, collaborate with businesses and organizations in order to offer additional social services for older events. I think when I first brought this to the commission, my ideas were really behind what social services or what needs the older adults have, but I have not been able to really think about a good way to capture what the needs are. We can sit here as a commission and try and decide or think and what's best for them, but I think that much like the survey that we put together to ask the residents what their needs are, I would like to do the same thing with seniors, and perhaps do the same thing at bingo or luncheon, just piggyback on those events. And I'm sure you have your regulars that come to the luncheons and to the social events, and it would be good forum for us to just get there, kind of ask questions and make ourselves visible as commissioners. I will commit to that now that the mission is open and I'm not underwater. And that way, we would have a better idea of what their needs are. Moving on to,
Quick question. Besides the people that go to the luncheons and whatnot. What about the resident? How would you reach out to residents that who don't attend those?
I think we could also offer the same surveys during the events that we have. National Night Out, the summer event programs, the,
Let's say they don't go to them just because they're older and they're just, at home. I only ask because actually my neighbor, his mom, older lady, she's great. She's always walking and everything, but one day he came up to me, he's like, hey, she's starting to forget. And he was concerned, and I was like, well, I told him off the top of my head, I was like, oh, maybe get an AirTag. There's a lot of GPS, on the market. So he didn't know about it. He's like, okay, I'll look into that. But I'm just wondering, they're older and they're not the type to go to these events. They're just at home, kind of just, do their thing during the day, and that's it. They're done by like 6.
I think we also have the challenge of they're not frequent users of smartphones.
They're not.
Like my neighbor who's blind and relies on rideshare and doesn't have the app, so we'll talk about that later. But it is a challenge. I'm open for suggestions. I other than going door to door, and we don't have that capacity to go door to door, but we could piggyback on events that do draw seniors or
Maybe
services that
something in the
bring them
San Gabriel community.
the newsletter.
Yeah, there you go.
Grapevine?
Yeah. Because that goes to everyone. I know I receive it, so I'm sure they get it, and maybe that might catch the eye of those who don't attend the events.
Sure. But how do we get them to answer a question? That would be we could put it out there, but is there a phone number they would need to call? Is there, again, the challenge of many of them aren't technologically savvy and wouldn't go on the computer to fill out a questionnaire. But perhaps I'm open to suggestions, however we can get the word out or have them call, like I said. I'm open.
So there's an adult daycare, if you will, south of Valley services that population. I don't know if they're still around coming out of the pandemic, because a lot of those types of service providers did go out of business, but that might be the type of venue where you would want to drop off flyers. Supermarkets as well. Hawaii Supermarket is a community.
How do we get them back, though? If we drop off a flyer, then it would have to have postage to get it back.
There could be a box perhaps for people to just, here, take a survey, 5-question survey, put it in the box, but then it would be up to staff to collect the boxes.
Right?
Yeah.
Trying to think of ways in which we don't incur staff time. But it's something to start with.
What
Is there
about
an outreach team, like during normal business hours, that can set up table over there, or at certain locations just with their smartphone or iPad and just do it for the people walking by, kind of grabbing their attention type deal?
That's a question for staff.
Sure. So I'm taking it back a little bit, but at the very beginning of the pandemic, I think it was our community development team that tried to implement almost like a mobile city hall type of survey setup. And the response wasn't super well received, but at the same time, it could have just been because it was during COVID and people didn't want to talk to anyone. So there's also that variable. But the idea was to try and increase engagement and increase information direct to the customers and potentially directly to the residents that we're supposed to be serving. So we can certainly give that a go. We are in the process of hiring 2 new recreation supervisors, so they'll take some time to get familiar with everything before we can send anyone out into the field to do something like that. We are making some additional efforts to increase access to the information and the programs that we're putting together. So I think it was Commissioner Huerta that mentioned our Discover SG publication. And so that's replacing the Grapevine Guide. As part of that new publication, we've increased the number of pages dedicated to the senior program, so we're not trying to cram things into such a small section, which then also allows us to expand our senior program. So upcoming, we have our October senior dance, which we haven't offered in the past, so we can accommodate 200 people. So we're trying to also advertise further in advance, and since this new publication is going to every single residence in the city of San Gabriel, that's a kind of a built-in cost already, right? There's already someone working on the design that we're paying as a city. There's already the printing cost that's going into it, and it's reaching every single person in the city, assuming that they're opening it to read it. So that's one area where we're trying to change the way in which we program, so that way it's half a year in advance, that way it makes it into these publications. We also do have a flyer typically for each program, but again, that's limited to assuming someone's walking into one of our doors. And then, of course, delivering the information to the people in the programs. Some of our programs, there is a language barrier, specifically in our meal program, that seems to be where we have the largest language barrier. I can't pinpoint for you exactly what language it is, so that also makes it difficult. I believe the majority of them speak Mandarin, based off of the volunteer that we had that was able to communicate with the majority of them, and that was the language she spoke. So just something to keep in mind, where if you, the commission did want to do a survey, it would be helpful to have a translator with you as well if you don't readily speak that language. I think your return on results might be a bit higher. Most of the time, you'll also want me to escort you into the room to give you an introduction, because they can tend to be a bit more reserved and less open to communicating with you and fear that you're not who you say you are, which is kind of the message we send them anyways. Don't trust anyone unless it's me or one of my staff, to keep them as safe as possible, since there's not a staff person always manning that building.
It's understandable.
But yeah, so those are the efforts that we're making, but we're open to any ways we can mix that up. And so the Hawaii supermarkets, is there an information board at okay, great. So we'll reach out to them. I think that's a great area that is free, potentially, that we can access.
And we could put it in the Grapevine, couldn't we? Because you have to imagine that families are caring for their seniors, and they would be receiving the Grapevine. So you're right, if we put it out there and their caregivers have access to it, then they'll be more likely to respond. All good ideas. If I wanted to get a list of all the businesses that are in San Gabriel, is it economic development that I need to reach out to?
Correct. They wouldn't necessarily provide the list, but if there was something that
I could
we could send
target.
off, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. And
And then I want to add in, maybe dial-ride is another thing we can incorporate the survey with, like put a survey boxes in the car. And I know that a lot of residents, they do use the service, and then maybe that's another approach we can reach out to those residents.
good idea.
And that's a service our city provides, so maybe
Yes.
easier to coordinate.
I'm open to that, absolutely.
And then in terms of the Grapevine, possibly like a dedicated page for a survey, so that way they don't have to scan the barcode or go to a specific website, and then they can just check whatever they want and have a family member or themselves come out to events and
Drop it off.
Yeah.
Could provide
It's one of-
a Dropbox. If we have a booth that has our name on it, then we could have a Dropbox for any kind of survey they want to drop off. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Moving on to 2A, continue to support health services by partnering with health service providers. So, sounds real easy. It's not. I have been working on developing our relationship with Herald Christian, and I was able to go and have a meeting and build that relationship, how they reach out to their clients, if you will, who they serve, and how initially it was how Mission San Gabriel could partner with them, and then extend that to the city. I think that the HERE Commission puts together that mental health awareness in October. I think that they are doing a really good job of focusing on bringing in healthcare providers into a central location. I think that they have been contacted by the HERE Commission, Herald Christian, and will be part of that in October. But I did find that Herald Christian is, they're an FHQ, I think that's what they call them. So they don't really want for clients or patients. They come looking for healthcare. Patients come looking for healthcare. So I think that my next step with them is to see how they can partner with us in a way that is beneficial for both of us, the city and Herald Christian, and we just haven't found that right formula yet, but I will continue. In meeting with them, I've also met with Department of Health Services, Mental Services, and that is really working with a very small department that works with Catholic parishes, and they have a program in which they kind of train ambassadors to then go out and work with the parishioners and creating ambassadors, creating clinics, creating just listening sessions where they come in and talk to families that are experiencing any kind of issues with mental health within the family, and really connecting through the faith services. So I've also worked with them. Don't know how it's going to fit with us yet, but we're still working at it. And next is 2C, connect all geographic areas of the city. For example, hosting events and programs in South San Gabriel area and with other neighborhoods. I haven't really figured that one out yet. I don't know what type of events can be held at, let's say, Marshall Park. I would look to any of my commissioners for suggestions, how we can do that, how we can connect through community service events other than what we already offer. I'm still working on that one. Like I said, I would love any kind of suggestions. And I think that one's it. Oh, moving on to 5A, collect survey data with targeted questions. I was really excited that we were able to do that on Tuesday, August 1st, National Night Out. I don't know, were you able to come?
Yeah,
And
I arrived right after Commissioner Barantes left.
Commissioner Brandt is also was really good at connecting. I thought it was fun. It was exciting. It was actually interesting to see that there were families who were not from San Gabriel, but they were there enjoying themselves. So it was a really good night. I don't know what your experience was like, Commissioner Barantes.
Yeah, it was good. No, but yeah, I experienced a lot of families that weren't from the area. So, but I was able to get a few to go ahead and fill out the survey and whatnot. So it was good.
I'm excited to see what the results are and kind of kick them around and see where we can provide more services. I think community services does a great job. So many facets of what the community services department has to deal with. It's a lot. And I'm always in admiration of the staff of juggling everything. But I think that's it for me.
I want to give kudos to Commissioner Hora and then Commissioner Barantes. They did a lot of service. By the time I arrived, I saw the stack of services they did. And I think the approach right now we have at the community service department booth is pretty good because we have that's what I heard from the city staffs we have at the booth, that by offering those crafts stuff, that we're always getting a lot of kids coming to our booth, and the parents will follow along. And we get some opportunities, so that's something we can keep up and give us more opportunities.
I agree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I want to give a shout out to Isela Aforiso, and she was there manning the booth that day.
That's right.
She was doing a really good job, and she was doing the service after you both left.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and then entertaining the kids. She did a really good job. Thank you. And anything else?
I was going to ask for the booth if we can be more centered.
That's one of my idea too.
'Cause we were kind of off at the end, and I don't know, a lot of people, at least from notice, me sometimes, I'll go to an event, I'll go through most of it, and I'll just kind of look, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. I don't go to the very end. So I don't know, I felt like if we're more centered, we can get more attention. And then have the banner, of course, would also get people to come over. But at that event was nice though, because we were in the shade. It was really hot that day. So being centered, I saw those booths in the center. I was like, oh, that's hot. But yeah, just overall though, I think being kind of in the center would get more attention towards us, possibly.
And especially we were right next to the balloon lady, and then the line was like 1 hour long, so it completely blocked us.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
like a wall of people. They just-
Exactly. And I walked toward the end of it, and I saw those drawings on the floor. I'm like, oh, who's doing that? And then I realized, oh, it's actually our department. So yeah, it's kind of like hidden. Yeah, and especially I walk from the north side down to that head, so it's kind of like if I don't make more moves, I wouldn't even reach our department booth.
National Night Out, is that hosted by the police department?
Correct.
Okay, we'll have to put in our request
The
next.
police department, the one who reaches out to people to come?
Correct.
The arrangements too?
Pardon me?
The arrangements of the booth?
Correct, yeah.
Oh.
PD takes charge of the entire event. We simply just provide whatever equipment we have, like the canopies, chairs, and tables.
Uh-huh. And then speaking of the mental health awareness, the event that Hair Commission is putting up, I went to that one last year, and then there were a lot of older adults. So if we want to do some survey about the older adults, maybe that's another event we can go and then try to
Can ask them.
conduct some survey, yeah.
Sure.
If it's
There's still space
possible.
available, so if you,
Allows
Good.
to
I
have a
can
booth.
certainly add you on.
Great.
Be a community services department booth. Of course, a lot of our programs contribute to offsetting any potential
Sure.
mental health concerns.
Perfect.
When is this?
October
I'm not sure.
1st.
Okay. And
Sunday,
then-
October 1st from 12 to 4.
Yeah, and the one thing they did last year, I don't know if they're doing it this year, is they have like a checking sheet and like they have all the names of the booths, and they encourage everybody to go to different booths to get a stamp. So,
Support.
yeah, and then they can get a chance to raffle some gifts in the end. So we can put our booths in there, and then like you complete the survey, then we give a stamp for some kind of stuff, and then, yeah. Just think out loud.
I'm in.
Oh,
Happy to commit.
Side note, while I have it on my mind, is there a photographer within the city?
We typically contract out. We have one that we work with often, but we don't have a internal photographer.
Okay. Okay, I'm just wondering I don't know if anyone took any at National Night Out or at the 4th of July one.
I think one of the city staff sent us the pictures through email.
Yeah, there were a big old line in the middle of all the pictures, so I was just like wondering if there was more of a professional type.
Right.
Okay, but if you have one, yeah, okay, that's good to know.
All right. I think that's it for this section. All right. Moving on to summer programming updates. Staff will present a summer programming update to include programs and events offered, attendance and revenue received to date.
Perfect. So it's queuing up right now. So the intent of the presentation is really to give you an overview of what we have to date. Obviously, there's still a couple weeks left of summer. We still have another concert and movie. We have 2 more weeks left of day camp. So it's not going to fully capture everything, but it'll capture the majority of it. I figured it was best to do it during this meeting versus making the commission wait until October, because potentially some of your comments may contribute to the way in which we operate for our fall programs. So I'll go through everything. You're welcome to stop me if you have any questions. Again, we'll have more follow-up at the next meeting as we round everything out. throughout here, we'll also try to highlight some of our upcoming programs. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me as I am going through it. All right, so our free youth programs that we offered over the summer was our Jefferson Sports Academy, which was led by our recreation specialist, Jackie Villalvaso. Our Summer Parks with a Mission program, which is our free program that's offered at McKinley and Roosevelt. Desiree, our senior recreation leader, worked very closely with me to make sure that we kept that up and running throughout the summer. And then I'll jump back to Jefferson Sports Academy. That was offered for a shorter period of time that matched in alignment with the summer school program. We quickly learned as we were coming to a close that the kids didn't want it to end. They were having a fantastic time, which means that we were doing something right. They weren't, dragging their feet every day. We had some really, really engaged staff that had a passion for recreation and a passion for sports, and that clearly showed in the way in which they were interacting with the kids. We had about 4 staff that ran the program, and they did volleyball and basketball, I believe. And there were some kids that loved basketball and some kids that, weren't huge fans, but they still found a way to keep them engaged. Excuse me, it wasn't basketball, it was indoor soccer. My apologies. And so they would rotate from indoor gym practice time to outdoor time. They did tie-dye shirts at the end of the summer to promote team building. So it wasn't just the sports itself that they were focusing on and the skills. They were focusing on team spirit, working well with others. They had homework time at the very beginning of the program to make sure that they put the focus on academics as well as the sports. And it was a fantastic turnout, as mentioned. This is a program that is funded largely by CDBG, and we had about 29 students enrolled. So we're hoping that'll continue to grow. We'll be offering it again in the fall in a more robust format. So the Jefferson Sports Academy over the summer is typically skills-based and getting them the intro to the sports. And then in the fall, we work in the 210 League, and which is essentially all of the surrounding schools, and they compete against each other. Typically about every Thursday, and that usually runs throughout the fall. So we'll be offering flag football and, sorry, I'm coming to a blank all of a sudden. Thank you, volleyball. So we'll be doing volleyball again. So it's co-ed flag football and girls volleyball. So we're thrilled to be offering that. Yes. It is for grades 6 through 8.
Okay, middle school, all just totally middle school.
Correct, just middle school.
And what are the times of the day that they have it?
It ran from bell, which is about noon. They typically didn't start gearing up until 12:30 because technically 12 to 12:30 was their lunchtime until 5.
Oh,
During the fall, we're extending the program hours from bell to 6 p.m.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so that'll be our first program out of all of our youth programs that are extending till 6. So we're hoping to have a positive, some positive feedback and hope that we can meet the needs of the parents. That's what we've heard from a couple of our sites, but that's the first one we're going to try it out at and see how that changes things up and how it's received by the parents.
And I think they participate in the 4th of July parade.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
That's right, which was really awesome.
Cute.
No, when you say 29, is that the max that you can handle, or how?
Our max, I believe, was 40 for this program.
Wow, that's quite a few kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This was a free event? Or
Correct, it's free.
How did I miss that? I would have signed my book.
Yeah, so we're not doing a good enough job at marketing, it sounds like.
Depending on you.
Coming in fall, it's going to be free again?
Yeah, correct. It'll be completely free with the exception of the cost of the jerseys.
So actually, that's a good point. What does free actually mean for us? Do you when I was looking through some of these pages, again, we put on so much programming, right? Even if there is a fee attached to it, it's very low fee. Do we have a sense of how much it costs to run on some of these programs? You can either break it down in terms of staff time or the cost for jerseys, hiring outside staff to watch the kids. balls, whatever it is.
Sure.
And a cost analysis.
Sure, I can certainly provide that. I don't have that for you tonight, but I can certainly give you a breakdown at a later date. Yeah, but typically most of the cost goes into staffing. We spend very little on actual supplies, especially for our sports program. We try to run all of our programs very skeleton when it comes to the actual supply costs. Doesn't mean that we're shorting them of anything. It's just we expect staff to be creative, to come up with innovative ways with a little bit of supplies. So of course we can go to Oriental Trading, or we can go to some of these other teaching stores and spend a lot more, but we just haven't found that the kids have any more enjoyment than they would with some of the more creative projects that the staff have come up with. But yes, the majority of the cost, the biggest cost is staffing. Our Summer Parks with the Mission is our free after-school style program. So we went into the summer with the intention of offering McKinley during the summer school months, which are essentially the first, I think, 5 or 6 weeks of summer, and then extending it till the end of July. So we moved forward with that, had a fantastic feedback from the parents. The school site was fantastic to work with, and Roosevelt, we went in with the intention only to offer it during the summer school months, or summer school weeks, with the intention of ending July 7th. We were nearing the end. We spent the first few weeks with about 6 kids on average. Not a huge turnout. And so we were trying to figure out kind of what were we missing along this way. Clearly there's a need. Clearly people are interested at other sites. Why are they not interested here? So at the very end of the program, we were very fortunate to have very invested staff at that particular site. At Roosevelt in particular, they have a music enrichment program. So at the end of their summer school, they had a showcase. And so the staff were out front of the close of the showcase passing out hard copy flyers. And we have one staff member that speaks Spanish fluently and was able to really connect with the parents. By the very next week, we had 30 kids in attendance. So clearly there was a need there, and we extended it to match with the McKinley program dates all the way through July 28th. The parents were extremely appreciative. We, of course, had a kind of a shell shock at the initial extension, right? When you have a team of 2 that's working with 6 kids and then quickly jumps the next week to 30, they quickly have to pivot to make sure that they can meet the needs of the 30 kids rather than the 6. So we worked alongside with the staff to make sure that they were supported and had what they needed to succeed at that site. We also then ended up bringing in a 3rd staff member to be sure that we could adequately care for the kids that were there. After summer school, it runs from 10 to 4. During summer school, it runs from about 12 to 12:30 till about 5. The McKinley enrollment was 82. That was all encompassing between the first half and second half of enrollment. Roosevelt enrollment was 46.
Another place that you might want to let them know about is at La Casa.
That's true.
You know, I'm sure those parents would be appreciative if their kids had those opportunities to attend. They just don't know about it. And if you have someone on staff that speaks Spanish, that would be very helpful.
I really appreciate the team and really working hard and thinking hard about it and put work into it to make it a significant change in the results. That's like big kudos to the department.
I will certainly pass it along to the staff. That was our biggest turning point with the staff this summer, is we really wanted to make sure that they took ownership of their site, right? So just because they're part-time staff doesn't make their job any less significant than any other role within the city of San Gabriel. So we really wanted to make sure that they knew that they were part of a bigger team and that they were there to not just serve the students, but also have a great time doing it. And the effort that they're putting in is going to show in the success of the program.
Right. I really like our field employees at the school sites. They're just always full of energy, and then just like you can see that they love what they do, and then they just really enjoy being with the kids. And just I really like that, and I really love to see our department keep as it is.
Excellent. Thank you. So going into the school year, we just started registration for our after-school program today. Our Wilson after-school program filled up in 17 minutes. We started it at 8 a.m. It was filled up at 8:17, and we maxed out at about 40 for that site. So as we are finalizing staffing, we'll see if we can increase that since we already do have people on the wait list for that program. But it will also be offered at Coolidge, Washington, Roosevelt, and McKinley. The Roosevelt age group will go from K through 5. The other sites will run from first grade through 5th grade. We have it extended at Roosevelt because that's typically what the ask is. Since they have the music enrichment program, there's not typically as large of a need for the older children as there is the younger children, since their day goes a lot longer than the typical elementary school.
So you don't have a problem getting kids for this activity?
Not at all.
Don't need to advertise that at all. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and we've been really pushing our e-newsletter as well. As people call in and ask about, when is the registration going to start, we're doing a better job of asking if they want to join the newsletter, because most parents have email access, and we can always provide more instantaneous updates on those registration dates that they seem to be more responsive to as well. The last one is our 3-on-3 basketball league with Breakthrough Sports. Danielle Adriano, our recreation coordinator, will be taking the lead on working with the third-party contractor Breakthrough Sports to offer this. We offered it last year, and it was extremely well received. This is not a free program, is the caveat to this program. It runs at $199 per child for 8 weeks. So it's a very large ticket price, but there's a very large return on the investment on the parents' end. So it's professional coaches that go out and teach the kids. That is their expertise, is coaching and basketball in particular. And they touch the ball more in a 3-on-3 league versus, my staff are going to laugh as I'm saying this because I am not the sports person in our department, versus the 5-on-5. So the goal is that they are honing in on their skills, so that way once they make it to high school, they're the best of the best when they go to try out for the team. At the end of the season, they do receive a medal. They get a little goodie bag, and then throughout the process, they're really trying to, again, keep that team spirit up as well. So since they're not doing formal games against other third-party groups, they're playing each other amongst during their game sessions. So they do 1 practice a week and then 1 game a week for 8 weeks. Our SG Summer Camp program. So this is another one of our paid programs. It runs for 10 weeks over at Coolidge Elementary School. The cost for this program is $130 a week, and then that will get you from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then extended care runs $26 per hour, which gets you care from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. Included in this cost is all of the field trips that are listed off to the right of the screen, or any additional third-party groups that we bring in. For example, during Week 1, Dance Around the World at Camp was the activity. We don't like to do field trips on the very first week because staff are still getting acclimated and the kids are still getting acclimated to the way camp is run. So we brought in a third-party group through Dream Shapers, and so it was her sole job is to do these dancing/learning components for the kids. So that was an hour-long activity on a Thursday that took place of that. Otherwise, trips like California Science Center and LA Zoo are things that are included in their cost. All they have to do is take their kids, we take them on the bus, take them to the zoo and bring them back, and they're exhausted by the time they get home, as you can imagine. The most well-received trip this year was the LA Zoo. I drove down there myself, and I was I had never been to the LA Zoo, so I was very, very pleased to see that it was massive, and there were lots of things for the kids to see. Sometimes we book these things as full-time staff, hoping for the best, that the kids are going to enjoy it. We do as much research as we can and try to get as much feedback before we book it. But I was very happy to see that the kids were so excited and jazzed up. They were all in their bright neon orange camp shirts. And I think we were the largest camp that I saw on site, at least. So it was good to see San Gabriel representing it in that way. The t-shirt, the camp shirts, those neon orange camp shirts that I was talking about are included in their camp registration fee unless they register beyond May 22nd. Then we charge them $8. And it's important to note that that does not recoup the cost of the t-shirt. They're much more expensive now to have made. But it is intended to offset a little bit since we would have to place another order, presumably, if they register too far into the summer. Our revenue, we're looking at about 100,000 right now during the summer, and that's not collecting our week 9 and 10 fees yet either. So we do fairly well. It's important to note that the majority of those costs go back into staffing. So as you can imagine, with a 1 to 10 ratio, so 1 staff per 10 kids, plus your day camp director and assistant day camp director, it eats through that revenue pretty quickly. So for the most part, it's a break-even program. Any additional revenue that is received goes towards general craft supplies, general supplies for the program, and then of course the field trips themselves. So you'll notice if you've looked at our lineup of field trips, we try to go to things that are either low cost or we'll swap it with every other week. So for example, it doesn't cost us anything to go to Mother's Beach, but it costs us quite a bit to go to the LA Zoo. So we try to use those to balance it out, so that way we can still keep that cost down for families. One of the major pieces of feedback that we received from parents when they registered is just how low the cost of the program was. And so they were pleased to see how low we were able to keep it and still keep that quality of service up. Of course, we've had some hiccups with regards to the heat or other concerns. It is difficult to make parents of 90 kids happy all at the exact same time, but I think the staff have done a pretty good job of balancing that.
I have a quick question. Do you, since it's a city activity, do you get a break on cost from any of these things, like the LA Zoo?
We do. So there is a group rate for the LA Zoo, so that went down quite a few dollars per ticket.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that they would accommodate that.
So I do have some direct feedback on this program. It's because I have my children in the program. So not for the entire summer, but they have entered recently. And I do want it noted in the minutes because I noticed that some of the commentary that we had before our last break, I sort of mentioned registration being a little bit of an issue. So if we can look at that more, because having to register for the program by phone was a challenge, getting through busy lines and sort of leaving voice messages that weren't answered. Obviously, again, what is the cost analysis on this? We provide these services to families at such a low cost, and I'm really surprised that $130 would lead to a break-even cost analysis for this program, given the fact that it's from 7 or 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., plus all the staff time involved with registering families. I mean, it's a lot of work. But if we can look at registration a little bit more to make it more easy for families to register, especially those with 2 working parents who can't necessarily stand in line for an hour to get through the door. Same goes with the swim program. In terms of operations, so I think there are some issues that we can address, maybe something we can discuss, in terms of safety for the kids. Obviously, the heat it's not just, making sure parents are happy. It's a legal issue, I think, for the city if someone faints on the way to, walking to the pool because it's a mile and a half away. I think at some point during the summer there was a good suggestion of using a wagon to transport all the supplies for younger kids, because before that, all the little kids, 5-year-olds included, would have to walk with their backpacks and all of their lunches, plus their water, a mile and a half in the heat in San Gabriel to get to the swimming pool. So it's an issue, I think, for the city if someone were to, collapse or faint because of the heat plus the distance. In terms of security, perhaps we can do a better job, too, of making sure the names are correct. So my kids' first names and last names were incorrect. And it's, in terms of, why is that important, is if there's an emergency where someone had to be pulled out of camp, you want to make sure that you are able to locate that person, especially if it's a minor. In record keeping, I think it's important, too, in case issues were to arise in the future. So just some things to think about, if we can raise the cost perhaps for the camp so that we can provide more staffing, so it's a little bit less onerous for the current staff to run, for the recreation supervisors to run. That's something we can think about. Obviously, then, you know, in terms of fairness, you know, and making sure that's not a huge burden for families to have full-time daycare during the summer, that's also a consideration. But, you know, looking more along the lines of, is $130 really enough to pay for the kind of quality that we're looking for, that parents are looking for when they sign up for this program? Just wanted to note that.
Keeping that in mind, if she, if you do decide to or consider raising the price, can you do it on a sliding scale if there are families that are in need and really can't afford it but could benefit? I mean, we need to consider like a scholarship or something, I think.
Yeah, it would certainly be an option. We would need to take the fee to council ultimately and provide the justification behind it, or the Community Services Commission's justification as well in support of XYZ changes. Traditionally, we've made changes at the start of a new fiscal year. So this is up from previous years. Not a lot, but it is up from previous years. But yes, if there's other things like a sliding scale that could potentially meet the needs of different parents.
Because we're not doing it to make a lot of money. We're doing it to provide a service to the families. And some of the families that really would need it probably look at the cost and say, well, we can't do that. So I would like to see where they are maybe given an option of a partial scholarship or something so their kids could participate. So just something to consider.
I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask it right now or if we should wait until, what's next? The aquatics program? I'll wait until after the, yeah.
Okay, so for the aquatics programs, we've had our Learn to Swim classes and lap swim, and then one thing that I omitted from here is our rec swim, so my apologies. I'll start off with rec swim since it's not on here. We initially advertised it on as Thursdays from 7 to 9. As we were able to further assess our staff's availability, we extended it to Fridays from 1 to 3:30. And that was extremely well received by the public. I think the last 2 years we received the feedback from the public that they wanted to see an additional day of rec swim. That was the day that the most staff were willing and able to work, and the day where we thought the majority of people might be able to attend that as a second option, of course, to the 7 to 9 on Tuesday, so that's 7 to 9 p.m. And there was definitely no issue meeting that need and getting the word out there pretty quickly. For our Learn to Swim classes and lap swim, our total enrollment was 653. Of those 653, 6 of those are lap swim, since that's how many we can feasibly put in the pool at one time. So as you can see, the majority of those are our Learn to Swim classes. Our revenue between the two of those was $28,000 throughout the summer. Of course, that will continue a little bit as we progress through the summer. That doesn't include any fees collected for user groups that rent out the pool for various activities. That's only just Learn to Swim and lap swim. The Learn to Swim classes are offered by cycles, so it's essentially 2-week cycles, and it's either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday through Friday, and then of course the times vary. All of the staff that are there have certifications specific to teaching classes. So for the Learn to Swim classes, they're required to have their lifeguarding certification and their water safety instructor course. As a city, we decided that it was in our best interest and the community's best interest to cover their certifications for our existing guards that have proven that they have a commitment to the city and are willing to stick around for a little bit, since it does have a hefty price tag to keep these programs going. So I think we've positioned ourselves well to continue growing the aquatics program. So we realize that there are areas of of growth and learning as we go through this. But we're very fortunate to have a set of staff that are willing to put in the time, and very fortunate to have our public works staff that are willing to help us navigate our aging pool and keep it running. So all in all, there is certainly room for improvement, but we're on the right track. One thing we did want to highlight was, prior to the summer, we reached out to our public information officer and expressed the extreme need to hire additional lifeguards. So it wasn't even just WSI certified lifeguards that we were looking for, just lifeguards with the kind of very entry-level certifications. And so this wasn't just an us problem, right? This was a statewide shortage that we were experiencing, but we wanted to figure out what could set us apart from other agencies and what were other agencies not doing that we potentially could do at a very low cost. And one of those was utilize our social media and our fantastic team that we have. So Jessica came to the pool and did some recording of our staff. And our staff were actually very hesitant at first, and then as we got them realizing that it was not as scary as it may seem, they got extremely into it by the end of the recording. So I'll pull this up really quick. I will note that this received about 900 likes compared to some of the other reels that have been posted by the city, which are between 91, 100, 300 likes. So clearly the team did something right here. So let me just start this from the beginning. So I like to point out this comment here, always wanted to be a lifeguard and wish I lived there. I think that's a testament to how well done the video was, and the dedication of our staff. And I think even from this video, you can't tell how old our pool is. So we're doing a good job of keeping up our aging facilities, and our public works team was extremely dedicated this summer. They made some really drastic improvements as far as aesthetics are concerned. There's certain things that cost quite a bit more that take some time, but there are dive blocks at the south end of the pool that were rusting and needed to be repaired. So they made the repairs, they spray painted them, made sure that they were safe for people to be walking by or hopping on top of. There were seating benches that don't quote me, but they look like they've been there since the pool was built. But now they look like they're brand new. So the seats were painted a bright blue. The kind of rusting, dilapidating legs all of the rust was sanded off, and a fresh coat of spray paint were put on there to kind of elongate their life even further. And then there's some posts that are at the south end of the pool, just behind the dive blocks, that are from a third party, that are intended to provide additional shade when a tarp is put on there. That really just were a bit of an eyesore, right? Just from being so close to the pool with all of the water and chems hitting it. So they grinded that down and spray painted that. So on top of that, the grates that you see in the picture, the white grates, they sanded those and repainted them, so then that way all the fiberglass is locked in right underneath the paint. So we haven't received any complaints or concerns about the fiberglass. So again, they're doing a great job. As I mentioned, there's certainly room for improvement, such as Commissioner Dong mentioned registration. So staff have already put out some great feedback as to what we could potentially do. I don't know that it's the best solution, but it might be the solution that we have until more registration software or new registration software is implemented. So we'll likely bring that back to the commission as we're approaching it, just to get some feedback. Since everything sounds great to us, since we know every single system, but it's always great to hear some feedback from someone who may not know the back end of it and is just seeing it from the user end. So let me come back here. So in the fall, we will definitely be bringing back lap swim, and then water aerobics is pending based off of, we have one really well-trained staff that's been with us for several years that I just need to bring him back from Pepperdine to train some of our other staff. So assuming we can get him back for a weekend, we'll be offering water aerobics again. So as you can see, we're trying to bring back some of our older programs that we had, many, many moons ago, and then also trying to incorporate a few other things. And then, of course, on top of this, that's not mentioned in the slide, are all of the user groups that will be coming back in the fall.
I had a question. In regards to the rec swim, the free swim, I don't know if that's the same. How come there aren't certain days and hours? Is it just because the pool's busy the majority of the time?
Correct. So it's a number of factors that go into the decision on that. So it is costly to have the pool open for rec swim, because typically we'll have 3 to 4 lifeguards during rec swim, and then typically a pool manager will also be paid to be there, or the assistant pool manager. So the staff cost is costly, and then of course just the cost of operating the pool and replenishing chems once people are in. And then keeping that cost low. It did go up as of July 1 to $2 and $3, so $2 for youth and then $3 for adults. So that is one reason. And then the availability of staff is another reason. So there are gaps in the day where we could potentially add it in, but it's also not necessarily the most desirable times either. So it might be, noon to 2, and on a Wednesday may not be the most desirable time for the public to come. But we can certainly look at that next summer to see if the staffing matches up with where the needs are.
I only ask because, the 2 days, are there 2 days right now, Tuesday, Friday?
Correct.
Kind of awkward, maybe the Friday not so much, but Tuesday hour is a little, I completely forget, you get home and it's just like you're done with the day. I only ask because we generally go to San Marino.
Okay.
Because they have it Monday through, actually pretty much every day in the afternoon. It's open from like 12 to 3.
Okay.
Weekends, of course, are obviously packed, but during the week, there are families that go there and take advantage of the free swim, and it's empty. A lot of people don't know. I didn't know about it. I forgot who told me. I think one of the residents mentioned it, and I asked. And then I did mention lifeguards because they have, obviously their budget might be different, but they had 6 lifeguards just hanging out there with a very minimal amount of people swimming. So I just kind of asked them, where do you get the lifeguards from? And he was going off by certain requirements and certificates. So I was just like, oh, okay, at that point. I just want to get more idea because they don't seem to have a problem with a lifeguard shortage. So I don't know. I mean, the person I talked to was the main guy for that. So I don't know if that's something I can connect him with someone on our side to talk.
Sure. Yeah, I will note that the shortage that we had prior to entering the summer, we no longer have.
Oh.
We're in a fantastic predicament now, and we're happy to be able to retain some of the staff that we brought on. So yes, I appreciate you sharing that. That is one area where I think you mentioned that maybe it wasn't super highly attended over in San Marino. We try to operate our programs at really high rates of attendance to ensure that there's a higher return on the public's investment in that particular program. So we can certainly, if there's another day where we can plug it in, we can certainly try it out, of
see
course.
how that goes, because I know a lot of my son's friends. We don't have a pool and they don't have a pool, so they kind of wish we had a pool. And
Sure.
like I said, I always head over to San Marino to go swim over there. So I don't know. Maybe we can get the word out. We're adding an additional day,
Sure.
and see how that goes. At least for summer. I mean, obviously, come fall, it might not be too popular. Just an option.
I agree. I think the timing right now for this free swim is kind of awkward. I'm never really able to get there during free swim, and I also don't have a pool. Have you ever considered offering swim memberships to offset the cost of hiring, maintaining the lifeguard staff, maintenance workers, price it so that, it's sort of a family membership. Don't underprice it because you want to make sure that it's enough to cover the costs again.
Yeah, I think if families can for sure know they have a place to swim, they'll be willing to, pay a little bit more to have that, especially in San Gabriel. So.
We once upon a time had a family membership and or a group membership. It wasn't extremely well received, but again, that was a while ago, so it wouldn't hurt to take a look at that. Would there be a particular day that would work best for you all? I'm not saying that we would have the availability, but potentially, is there a day that kind of pops out that was day and time would be?
Well, for sure, you guys don't have a Sunday, Saturday, right? Those, of course, would bring, I imagine, a lot of kids to the pool. In regards to membership, the San Marino also has one. You know, you pay, I think there's like $3 or $4 to go swim, but you can buy a little 20 swim pass for a little bit cheaper than paying, 20 times individually. So they kind of have their little system there. But yeah, their cost was a little bit more than what San Gabriel cost. But like I said, people that don't have a pool and it's hot and they want to swim with kids, the kids always want to go swimming. So I think that's something that can have a higher cost to it, to just be able to have more days to have the kids go out and swim.
San Marino, a big pool? Do they have a big pool?
They have a big pool, yeah.
It's attached to the high school,
Yeah,
correct?
uh-huh.
How many families could you,
Our maximum is
Actually-
100.
100 people in the pool?
Correct.
I just looked at their sign too. I can't remember what it was when I was swimming in it, but yeah, they have a little, it's like L-shaped. The longer part is for the longer laps, and then their little one is where they have most of the family.
Yeah, you could potentially run into the same problems that you have with regular sign-up for swim classes. If you offer a family membership and everybody wants to get in, you're still going to have the same issues because of the size of the pool, I would imagine. Not that it's not a good idea, it's just you still run into the same issues. I have a question about staff. And it's just a general overall question. Have you found that the part-timers that you've hired coming out of COVID, do they stick around? Are you having a high turnover with part-timers? And it's just a question because I'm hiring at the mission, and it's really hard to find staff that are dedicated, that want to invest, that are young, and I would imagine that the city is having the same challenges, or am I wrong?
Yes and no. So I think the way in which we manage part-time staff has changed drastically. So I was speaking with a colleague a week or two ago, and she was expressing her frustration with hiring and retaining part-time staff. And so yes, getting them in the door can be difficult, but getting them to stay isn't as hard as kind of we thought coming out of COVID, right? So I think the problem is we were trying a lot of the same techniques, which is let's be firm with them, let's provide them resources, let's show them that this is a good career path or that this could look good on your college application, but they don't all care about that. So how can we balance everyone's needs, right? So there's, of course, some of our part-time staff that are looking for the next step. So they're going to go above and beyond to make sure that they can get all of the hours that they possibly want. They can get a letter of recommendation for when they go to college. So there's that more traditional part-time employee that's using this as a stepping stone. And then there's certain employees that are just using this as something because their parents made them get a job, right? So two very ends of the spectrum. So how do you meet the needs and get the one that is just not as engaged coming into the program engaged? And so we've we have implemented new items across the board, such as staff of the week, to try and bring morale up. We do icebreaker activities at the beginning of every meeting, and it's not just, random icebreak activities. Well, yes, it's random. The intention is very clear, which is for them to get to know each other and invest in each other. So in that way, it's harder to break away from our program and leave us for another, right? So there's not necessarily a lot of agencies that pay more than what we're paying because we've done that analysis. It's what's attracting them because their friends are at another site. So we're seeing a lot of employees that are getting hired on that know someone. They may not be best friends with someone, and most likely they're not going to be partnered with them, but it's that word of mouth and showing that this is a fantastic place to work that's retaining them. And so, of course, there's certain things that they don't like about the job, or there's a certain staff members that are like, I want to work 5 hours a week, or there's certain staff members that want to work, 25 hours a week. So it's that flexibility as well with them that we're finding, but trying to give them the reason why, because they're no longer happy with the "because I said so" response. It's the full explanation behind it, which is great, because I'm going to provide it to them whether they want to hear it or not, and I expect the other full-time staff to do the same. So we've really pivoted in that way by making this really positive team environment that's people-focused versus just outcome-focused. So during our meetings, they're certainly getting a good mix of both. So we start the meetings with the people, and then we shift gears into, okay, well, how can we increase the attendance in programs, or how can we keep the kids more engaged? So again, while we're on the right track, there's certainly room for improvement in that as well.
Sure, there's just a lot of programming, and so you need staff, and it was just a general question. Thank you.
All right. So our Summer in San Gabriel series. So we started off with our Surf's Up event, our summer kickoff, which was led by Danielle Adriano, our recreation coordinator, which was held on Thursday, June 23rd from 6 to 9:30. We'll likely be shortening that to about 9 for next year's event. I think it got a little too chilly and just a little too long for this type of event. Most of our events cut off by 8:30 or 9 anyways, so it would fall closer in alignment with the remainder of those. At the event, we had community booths, live entertainment by the CS, the community services, Hawaiian and Polynesian dance classes, Woody and the Longboards, Polynesian dance group / LED poi performance, and an inflatable tiki rock wall and kids crafts. And as mentioned, we're looking for new ways to reimagine this event for 2024. For the most part, this event has been the same, with the exception of a few elements. So attendance dropped a bit at this event. It also dropped in the previous year. So we're looking at ways to keep it exciting, because it follows a similar format as our other events. So how can we make this different than Cinco de Mayo or Fall Fun Festival, to where it has very similar elements? To make it worth coming out on a Thursday night and spend their time here in the Mission District. So we're certainly open to new ways in which we can enhance it while still being budget conscious for this event. And for our concerts and movies, we had about 450 at our July 13th event, which is the mariachi concert and the presentation of Vivo. And July 27th was about 350, which was the 4-Alarm Band, which, if I'm not mistaken, is like a pop-ish type music. And then a presentation of Annie. We obviously don't have the participation from our August 10th event. I did receive feedback from our Mission Playhouse manager with regards to attendance at the concerts over at the Playhouse. And for the Louis Cruz Beltran event, there was about 300 people in attendance. And then for I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name, the Fat Yaki concert was about 200. So Louis Cruz Beltran is always kind of a group that brings the crowd, and we don't have to do much to bring it out. They kind of find out about it regardless. So I think we were all pretty pleased with that turnout as well.
Can I make a comment
Of course.
regarding those two? I really enjoy Louis Cruz Beltran, and he's always a fan favorite. And I think we determined he'd been coming since 2017, hadn't we, Rebecca?
Yes.
And people find out, and they come, and they dance all over the place. I mean, there were big crowds, and he pulls big crowds all the time. He's a fan favorite, he's very fun, and the music is good. I can't say the same. I did go to the Fat Yaki. I did not enjoy them at all. I ended up leaving early, and they weren't very professional. The music wasn't well received. My recommendation, don't invite them back. But that's just my personal one. And as you can see, there weren't very many people there. Yeah. There's so many other groups, I think, that would be so much better.
Does anyone vet these bands, or just whoever signs up, they come and that's it?
Yeah, so the staff vet the groups before they're hired on. They go through the contract process and everything before they're paid for their services. And it can be, asking for live videos. So my process when I was doing these, and I expect the same of our staff, is that we ask for videos of live performances of other city sites that they've done versus the pre-recording, because you never know what that's going to turn out after it's been adjusted, and then they're trying to play something live. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but we try not to bring a group that hasn't ever done a live performance for a city, because that's typically a different vibe than at a bar or club or something, right? So can they tailor that to the masses? So typically all of that is part of the vetting process to see what their history is, and then if they've performed at other cities, we give them a call, the staff over there, to see how they were to work with and how professional they were on stage.
We had a group last year that was fabulous. I mean, they had, even young kids were up dancing. They were so professional, but I spoke to Rebecca about it, and she said they play at Disneyland regularly. Do you remember who I'm talking about? Oh, my gosh, they were so good. But I said, can we get them back next year? And she said, no, it'll break our budget. So I just, they were fabulous, and but, it's not like people are paying to come in and see them either. But, man, they were a lot of fun.
What kind of music did Fat Yaki play? I was about to say, because it
It's supposed to be a jazz, but
might be good to put in parentheses the type of music, so at least people have an idea. Because if I see that, I'm like, I'm not gonna. I don't.
well, we always have two jazz musics at the mission, and Louis Cruz Beltane.
Is he
Bel
jazz?
Cruz has always been very popular.
Is he jazz? I have never gone, so. I don't know.
He's really good.
He's good?
So salsero,
Yeah.
salsa.
Oh, okay.
But this Fat Yaki we'd never had before, and they were a mix of, I don't even know how to explain it. They were supposed to be jazz, but it was kind of pop, but it didn't. It just turned out to be a mess. Is kind of what it was. Were you there? Yeah.
I could hear it.
Oh, yeah. I left.
I could hear it from my home.
I left.
So yeah, it would be good to know, because salsa would have been nice to go to and see, but I wouldn't tell by the name. So it just okay.
So for our Kids Day and 4th of July event, we had about 800 people in attendance. The attendance it looked fantastic, I think, on site at Smith Park for the Kids Day component. Obviously, the parade needed a few more spectators to make it even more exciting. The running on site of the parade certainly improved from last year. We had two extremely organized staff running it, so it was Adrian Franquez, our management assistant, and Danielle Adriano, our recreation coordinator, taking the helm on that with the help of some of our part-time staff. There are, of course, some room for improvement as far as getting the word out in advance in different ways. So we're still trying to figure out how we can do that. So that way we have more participation in the parade, as well as more participation to view the parade. So that way more people actually want to participate when there's people there. So those are just some areas that we've already identified that can draw more people in.
I was going to say that, what if one of the route would go up to Las Tunas? Because you're going to block off a major street, people are going to know about it and actually may want to go. Instead of going through the smaller streets, maybe head up to one major street. I know traffic may not like it, but it's early enough that it won't be that bad, though, I don't think. But I think it would bring a lot more attention, like you put up the traffic sign says, so road closed, on this day during this hour for a parade. And people are like, oh, there's a parade, maybe we'll show up, type deal. So, yeah, like I said, it might cause traffic, but people will know more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, something to consider. We'd have to talk with PD, see what services they would provide and how much that would cost. I know for myself and trying to recruit, when I was working for the elementary school, trying to recruit families to participate in the parade is always a challenge on 4th of July because of vacation. So many people go out of town or have family events that they go to. I think 4th of July is just very challenging all the way around. So I think when you have 800 in attendance, I think that's pretty good because normally everybody would be, traveling or, family commitments or whatever it is. But it is a challenge. I found that even, I think the only time that we had a real good showing was when the elementary school turned 100 years old, and we actually put we did a float, if you will, on a trailer. But even then, it was difficult, and it's 100 years, and it was difficult for us to round up some families. So I think it's still a good showing at 800 attendees.
Who's in charge of the tent setup and all the vendors that are there?
So for this event, we break it up into kind of all of the staff that we have on site at our office, and each one takes charge of a particular area. So one of our admin assistants took the lead on that. I oversee the event as a whole.
Okay.
So me, on as far as kind of the layout and where everything's placed. So if there's a suggestion that you have for
No, I'm just wondering how we can bring more local businesses to come, maybe set up a tent and whatnot.
Right.
Like my kids would go to the Hapkido, that's right there. Actually, no, that's Alhambra. Okay, never mind. But yeah, maybe more community involvement. I only bring that up because I saw some pictures from the Alhambra page for National Night Out, and there's like a 7-Eleven. There's the Cranes. Yeah, there's a tent there, so I'm just like wondering, if we can. I know that's PDs, but maybe at least for stuff that we're within the city, we can kind of reach out to some of the local businesses and say, hey, do you want to set up a tent? And obviously, they would probably have to, give something of value to the community, more information on what they do, I guess. But yeah, just something like that.
Right, and then in terms of the timing of the flyers come out, the publications, I think next year, if it's possible to have them earlier than what we had this year and give people more time to prepare for what they want to do. Because I almost had a group that will be willing to be part of the parade, but it was kind of short notice, and then it's just kind of like too late to register for the parade, for them to think of anything.
So you're thinking a month and a half prior, 2 months,
'Cause right now, I
just to
think.
put it in terms
7
of
months. Yeah.
2 months. Okay.
Yeah. And then, have we reached out to the schools for those participants?
Yeah, so they're out of session by the time we have our 4th of July parade. So we utilize the school sites and so far as the free programs that we offer, so Roosevelt and McKinley and Jefferson. That's where we incorporated the kids by doing their banner. And then we had the staff escorting them along the parade route. So that was our way of incorporating the schools. But since they're out of session at that time, that is a major area where we kind of lose the marketing power behind that. But potentially we could have the flyer done in advance,
Right.
well in advance of them going out of school.
Right, because I know our high school have a marching band, and they have different bands, and then other, like in the middle school they have like a music emerge, and then other ones. I think it would be beautiful if we were able to get them out to be part of the parade, and then that's something we probably need to coordinate prior with them, so they can get the people organized. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that maybe the timing also is challenging. I agree with Commissioner Huerta that it's a Tuesday, July 4th. If you have a holiday, you're probably out of town. You've planned a barbecue with a family somewhere else. Is it possible to move the parade to a different day, a weekend perhaps?
So this event will be going to council as well, so we can, certainly all of those will be up to council, since it is a kind of one of those events that have been with the city for a while, we would want to take that to council to determine how they want to move forward with something like this that, while seemingly could be a small change, could, there could be a large group of community members that may feel strongly one way or the other. But most certainly, it can change. It just, not unlike our youth programs where we can make those changes in-house more immediate, it is a bit longer.
Right. Because a lot of cities, they have their 1st of July parade in the morning, and it's kind of all the time collide with each other. And if we can separate the time, it would be another good option.
I was going to say, during the summer camp, is it mentioned there to the kids and their families?
I don't think that is an area where we marketed. No.
'Cause I mean, yeah, if we have an average of 89 per week,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be a good amount of kids, even if it's
Very
half,
true.
that they could bring their family. But I'm just throwing that out there.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Be an
Thank you.
option too. Because Coolidge is literally right there. It's
Mhm.
close by, so.
Definitely. So just, we have a couple photos. So we do appreciate the commissioners that were able to come out and do the judging for the parade. I know it's a kind of a long process, but we appreciate you bearing with us and selecting those winners. In the middle, we have our Older American of the Year winner for 2023, Joey Claro, who was the Grand Marshal for the parade. And then the banners in blue are the school sites that we had. And again, that was another way of us ensuring that the staff were engaged in the program, so that you can see that they started it and then got the kids to do their component of it. And then there's a group that brings in classic cars to the event as well, so that's what you're seeing on the bottom left. Our watermelon eating contest, which was extremely well received this year. So we're still fine tuning some stuff there, and we'll likely have to move it just because it was so well received. But even the little ones like to dive right into it. All right. So our recap here, maybe not the most exciting, but one of the more important things that our department has to offer, which is our Ride SG program. So as we've mentioned previously, this was the transfer from our Dial-A-Ride program into our all-encompassing Ride SG program. So we initially launched in August 2022 with the Ride SG Plus, which is geared towards providing transportation services within the city of San Gabriel and within a 5-mile radius outside of the city boundaries. So that was our existing Dial-A-Ride program that then was rebranded essentially to Ride SG Plus. It is accessible and readily available to those individuals, and it's curb-to-curb transportation. So they won't escort you from your door to the van, but they will help you in the van from the curb. Unlike the initial Dial-A-Ride program, there was about a half-hour window. So you would need to be prepared for that half-hour window. There wasn't any application or anything that would give you an estimate. You just had to be prepared. And that's very typical of a Dial-A-Ride program, so it wasn't anything unusual. People were pretty familiar with that. With the addition of the on-demand rideshare app, Ride SG, through RideCo, they're able to see once their driver has been assigned to them, once they have left to pick them up, and once they've arrived to their home. So they can see that all in the application. They can see any upcoming rides that they have booked, or they can also upload their payment method if they wanted to pay by card. Previously, they had to only pay by cash or coins on site in the vehicle. So if they wanted to just put in their card information, and then every time they book a ride, it'll just take it out, and it's still 50 cents per way. So essentially, round trip is $1. And it's important to note as well that this program is not only for medical appointments or going to the grocery store. You can, go for tea with friends. You can go for lunch. You can do anything within those boundaries. As with our other programs, we've been working through some kinks on it, obviously. So it's a big transition, especially for our older population who is not familiar with electronics or not familiar with utilizing that service. And so there's a lot of kind of panic that goes into it as we release the information on this new program. So we've done our best to reassure a lot of the seniors that they can still call in to TransDev is the new name for First Transit, to book the ride over the phone. So they don't have to use the app at all if they choose not to, but they don't have that upside of knowing when the rides are booked. Was there a question or?
Does the app show when your driver's on the way or when these arrive? Do you get
Correct.
an alert?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if your phone number, your cell phone number is connected to your account, you'll also receive updates via text message if you choose. Yeah, so for some of my seniors, they don't know how to use the app, but they know how to use text. They know how to text. So we'll connect their phone number to their application. They'll never log in. They probably don't remember what their login is, but at least they can receive the text message updates.
Right.
That's good to know. I think my my neighbor, who is blind and will use the phone instead, said that he called and he wasn't in the system. They didn't find his name in the system, but whoever answered the call walked him through it and kind of made sure that that transition happened for him. So it is a necessary component to make sure that those people that are like him, visually challenged, to be able to at least call and be assured that their ride will be there.
Yeah, most definitely. And that was the largest kind of roadblock we hit along the way as far as how we were reaching those particular populations, right? So it's one thing to send the information out and expect that they know it versus troubleshooting them on a case-by-case basis. So it really required a lot of staff time to be sure that we could address those and a lot of in-person meetings to be sure that we're addressing them because there's only so much you can walk them through over the phone versus in person. So we've held a couple in-person kind of seminars with a group of seniors as well. One in particular, he had the accessibility app on his phone where he would click on whatever portion of the screen and then the phone would read back like book ride now or something like that. So luckily he had a very supportive wife that was walking him through a lot of that as well. But at least we were kind of able to find a happy medium to where he could be as independent as possible without having to rely too much on his wife for that particular service. And so I think both of them were happy that there was a way for him to utilize the app without needing her assistance for all components of that.
It's important. He did say that the vehicles were really nice, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was, Rebecca put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to the new purchase.
Wonderful.
So,
Noticed.
I have a couple questions now.
Yes, of
This
course.
is definitely, these are city-owned. This is a city system that, just for San Gabriel, right? We're not outsourcing from someplace else like we used to.
so the new vehicles that are shown in this picture are city-owned. The previous vehicles were leased out through
Right, right, that's what I mean.
TransDev.
That's the difference now.
Yeah, correct. But otherwise, the actual drivers and maintenance are still through TransDev, so that's with the contract with them. And then the app itself is through Rideco, who manages any updates that happen or troubleshooting that we might have through the process. So that there's still, instead of one partnering agency, there's now essentially three. But the contact with Rideco is through the contract with TransDev. So it's probably more information than anyone wanted to know. But
I just think it's exciting that they've managed to get 4 vans and that they have this service and it's our city doing it. We're not outsourcing it to someplace else from some other city.
Yeah.
So well done, San Gabriel and Rebecca.
But we're still keeping the big trucks, right, that we're previously using, or we're only using the?
yes, so those vans will be decommissioned. I think Rebecca would have to speak to exactly what will be happening to those, but those won't be in circulation. So the feedback that we received from the third party that we work with is that these are much more efficient than those larger vehicles. So I think the max capacity for those vehicles were 8 or 11, somewhere in that range. And these, depending on whether or not there's a wheelchair being a person utilizing a wheelchair in the van will fluctuate the amount of seats that are available. But I believe it's somewhere around 4 or 5 seats.
Good evening, Commissioners. They seat one wheelchair and then 3 seats in the back and 1 seat up front. So it is a smaller capacity than our prior vehicles were, but Matthew's correct that those are no longer in service.
Okay. I saw them on the street, and I was going to ask, but surprisingly, you guys mentioned it at this time already, so awesome. But before, we only have like 1 or 2 vehicle, right? Now it increased to 4?
So there were 4 leased vehicles, but they were quite old. So quite often it was only 1 or 2 that were actually in service at one time.
Right.
So now we're able to rotate more vehicles in service at any given time versus before, where if one breaks down, it has to be out of commission until it can be up and running.
Okay. Have we ever entered to the stage that we're going to open it to all the residents, or was a no for the council?
Yeah, so that will actually be in my next portion. But yes, it's already open to the general public.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, for anyone below 62?
Correct.
Oh, I see.
And you said up to 5 miles outside of San Gabriel?
Correct. So Ride SG Plus will allow you to go a 5-mile radius outside of the city of San Gabriel. Now, the Ride SG program as a whole, meaning you would download the application, you would register for an account. Once you have that account, you can go anywhere within the city of San Gabriel bounds. So you don't get that added bonus of the 5-mile radius, but you also don't have to be a resident to utilize it either. So let's say you are staying at the Sheraton and you want to go visit the Mission, but you don't want to pay for a taxi or Uber. This is a much more cost-effective way to visit any of the local sites or go out for dinner without having to utilize those third-party services. But the cost would be slightly different, so it's $1 per way for those individuals. So not a huge increase in cost, still fairly reasonable. But again, you would only be able to go within the city of San Gabriel. The upside as well of the general population being able to utilize it is Ride SG Plus. You have to fill out an application, provide proof of residency, and then we put you into the Ride SG Plus group. So all of that's done through our office. So there is quite a bit of staff effort that goes into the startup of getting someone enrolled into the Ride SG Plus membership. The Ride SG for general riders, so anyone that doesn't meet that criteria for Ride SG Plus, it's fully self-sufficient in that they book their own rides. There is no call center for them to call in. Everything has to be done through the app. Of course, if someone comes into our office and needs some help using it, we're more than happy to help them. But the goal is that they're fully self-sufficient from point A to point B on the app from start to finish. And that opened up to the general public in July of 2023. We just had a meeting today, and the ridership has gone up slightly, so we're hoping that trend continues. Of course, the more riders that utilize it, the more we can justify this new service, of course, so that's number one. Number two is that any money that is gone into ridership, so every dollar that they pay brings down the cost of the service that the city is paying out to the third-party contractor. So obviously, $1 is not going to go super far, but if we double that, that's $30 less than the city has to pay towards the service.
So the Plus, will it pick you up out 5 miles outside of San Gabriel as well, and take you back to San Gabriel?
Only within the city of San Gabriel.
Okay.
Correct. And then it is also not door-to-door service like the Ride SG Plus. So the goal is that, well, not the goal. The service will provide you you won't have to walk any further than 5 minutes. And that's really pushing it from the majority of the stops. So there's actual stops, there are physical stops such as bus stops, and then there's virtual stops. So there won't necessarily be a sign, but there are stops that are worked into the system where it'll say walk to the corner of Santa Anita and Mission, and there's a virtual stop right there, and that's where you'll get picked up. So it's kind of this ambiguous virtual stop, but once you log onto the app, it'll tell you exactly where the nearest pickup location or drop-off location will be. So if you type in that you need to go to Hawaii Supermarket, it'll tell you where the nearest drop-off location is. Most of those large centers, like medical centers or grocery stores, will have a virtual stop located there. But there will be, of course, times where if you're going to a small mom and pop store that's not located towards anything else, potentially there's a virtual stop nearby, but not directly at that site.
What is our operation?
Sorry, say that.
Hours of operation?
Hours of operation are currently Monday through Sunday from 7 to 7.
7 to 7, okay. And then what's going to happen if we maxed out the capacity later?
Yeah, so we've already had that conversation of as we're approaching that, we'll have to have the conversation internally and come up with a plan of action from there and then bring it back to council. So whether that's purchasing new vans or reworking the hours, so maybe utilizing the 4 vans that we have, but extending it till 9 p.m. So we haven't explored these options just yet, but there's a lot of options at our disposal since we've already worked out all of the kinks for the program. It's now just how does it grow from there. So of course, any changes have to come with council approval, and then there's usually a cost associated with it as well, because it will either change the contract potentially, or it will change staffing needs or changes in the back end of the application. So there are quite a few things that will go along with it, but I don't think we're there just yet. I think that was my biggest fear going into phase 2 is, well, oh no, what happens if we advertise it and then we max out. But we're trying to be as strategic as possible with regards to marketing the program and doing it in a phased approach, so that way we're not flooded with too many people, and then we can't make adjustments to the routes as well, or not the routes, the amount of vehicles on the road at one time. So we have, I think it's 2 vehicles during the rush hour, which is typically the midday, and then it'll taper off or up depending on where it is. So we and our partners are exploring that as the need increases, and the app also tells us where the most amount of failed searches are. So if there's 50 failed searches at 7 p.m., meaning at the time in which we close our program, that might indicate that people want to see the service extended. So those are all items that we can take back to council with concrete information. We're not at that point just yet. We're still able to make the adjustments within the parameters that are set right now.
I just hope with that, with the increase on the demand, we don't compromise the convenience we're providing to the senior citizens, because that's basically the priority of this program, right?
Correct. Yeah, and so there are, while it's not going to offset all of those concerns, patients that receive dialysis once a week, and so they have a set dialysis appointment every Wednesday at such and such medical center. We provide that information to our third party at TransDev, and they have it in their system to automatically book it at the 7-day mark. So right at that 7-day mark, it'll book it in the system for them, so then they don't have to call every single appointment, and then if they forget, then they can't make it to their dialysis appointment. So those have already been thought out to make sure that those essential appointments are well taken care of. But again, that does require a certain level of communication from the public to be sure, with our staff, to be sure that we can put that all in motion for them.
Awesome. And I wonder if it's possible later for us to see a report like how many people are riding, and then what's a waiting time at different time slots, so we can have an idea like how long normally people wait, and then for different age groups too. Like,
Sure.
I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know that I can get as far down as age groups, but I can certainly give you information like failed searches. I can give you information on the average ridership, and general information like that. But as far as demographics, I haven't delved into that one yet, so I don't know how much of that the system will pull out for us.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. At least we put that thought in there.
Of course,
Yeah,
most
thank you.
definitely. And then, again, Jessica in our Public Information Office put together another Instagram reel for us. She modeled it off of another city that's offering a similar on-demand rideshare service, but you'll notice her voice is the one that's narrating the video, so I did want to highlight that. And she did a lot of all of the background work to actually pull the video together.
Meet Ride SG, your new local ride. San Gabriel's on-demand rideshare service is available 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for only $1 each way. Use Ride SG for your everyday local trips, such as after-school activities, work, shopping, or medical appointments. We strive to keep wait times short. Our vehicles will pick you up from a nearby bus stop or a virtual stop. Virtual stops are locations that are safe and easily accessible for pickup and drop-off. These stops are within a quarter-mile radius of where you are located. Book your ride, simply download the Ride SG app. Create an account, select your pickup and drop-off destination, and enjoy the ride. For more information, visit sangabrielcity.com/ridesg or call 626-308-2875. Ride SG is ready to serve you. Start your ride today.
So Jessica is our new public information officer?
So she's part of the two-person Public Information Office team. So Clara is still with us, and then Jessica works alongside her. So a lot of the posts that you see on social media are put together by Jessica.
Oh, she's doing really good on the videos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to do videos anymore.
Are there any additional questions on this? I think that's the end of our presentation. If there's any other further questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think we're good here, and thank you very much for this comprehensive report. We really appreciate the work that you and the department have put into.
I actually had one thing, off subject. How come we can't have city emails?
Sorry, I would need to follow up with our IT team. It hasn't been custom for commissioners to have city emails. I would
I'm just
need to
thinking it's a
double-check.
little more professional if we reach out to other people outside of the city and whatnot, so they can kind of see, oh yeah, it's legit, instead of having, your random email address. Because, like I told you, my concern before is, if I leave the commission and I've given you my personal and it's on the business card, I don't want people still emailing me afterwards.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering if that's ever been discussed or brought up before. So
Can certainly bring that back to the executive team and IT.
thank you.
Should I mention the public comment section, or it's already
I don't recall, but we don't have any public comments.
perfect? Move on to item number D, monthly department report. Staff will present the monthly department report pertaining to departmental programming.
So I left this item on here in case anything sporadically came up to put on here, but we went over everything in the presentation unless there's upcoming programs of interest to the commission. At the next meeting, we'll have quite a few updates on our senior program, so that'll be very senior program heavy. Hopefully we'll be fully staffed by then as well, so we'll be able to introduce the new team members, be able to share with you their areas of expertise, and what they'll be focusing on. So again, hopefully that at that meeting, there'll be a different set of information that we'll be providing than what was provided at this presentation.
Does any commission member have extra questions?
I have some comments. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Warta. She started as vice chair and ended up stepping in unexpectedly. And she didn't know if it was going to be one meeting or two, and it ended up a year and a half. And she really stepped up and took charge and did an excellent job. And this is at a time when she was in the middle of working for the mission and getting that resolved, and she still took this on, so kudos to you, and thank you very much, Terry, for doing that and stepping up.
Thank you.
You did a good job. Also wanted to state, as Chair said, thank you to the staff. I mean, summer is hectic. You take on a lot. And I'm always amazed how it always runs so smoothly, and nobody knows that behind the scenes, you guys are paddling as fast as you can with your feet under the water and make it look really easy and wonderful for all of us in the city. And we draw people from all over, not just San Gabriel, because of all the wonderful events. And with the fall coming up, big stuff coming up, they're going to be busy again, too. A couple other things I wanted to comment. The backpack giveaway is this Thursday. It starts at, what, 6? Between 6 and 7? Yeah. I plan to help with that. Did you need help putting things together ahead of time?
We should be okay for that. You're more than welcome to help us. It will be on Wednesday from, I believe, 12 to 2.
Oh, see, I'm working then, though.
Okay,
That's a problem. But I'm going to help. I told Karina that I would help hand them out at the park.
Excellent.
And I know she mentioned she and Councilman Menchaca donated, as well as the police department donated 100 boxes of crayons, I think. That's amazing. So there's a lot of people involved with that. One more thing, getting back to the pool, I had a conversation with Rebecca earlier in the week, and she and City Manager Mark and Councilwoman Menchaca are going to have a Zoom meeting with Norma Garcia Gonzalez and learn how they can work toward getting funding. So that's their first step to work in that direction and see what we can do to move forward in that, and she'll keep us informed. And here's the gift that keeps on giving, pickleball. I don't know if we passed it and we wouldn't have to deal with it anymore, but they're going in front of city council, and my understanding is that the last city council meeting, there were people there complaining about the noise, all the popping, and they handed the city council people petitions. Unfortunately, the majority of the signatures on the petitions were not even people from San Gabriel, so they really aren't valid. If you want to go to the meeting, which I think is next Tuesday, and support pickleball, that would be an opportunity. I think that they'll be fine. They had the whole room filled when they came here to our meetings, and they're very well organized, they're very well spoken, and I think they'll be fine. But just so you know that there will be some people there trying to stop this, and that's unfortunate because we've already been through the process, and I hope that it doesn't cause too many problems. That's the only thing I wanted to say. Thank you.
Not exactly a commission report item, but in terms of our next meeting, does one of us have to make a motion to move it off the calendar because it falls on Labor Day?
No need. We'll simply just post the cancellation notice, and unless there's if there's not a consensus amongst, then I would ask that there's a motion that's made. But it looks like there, for the most part, a consensus to move past that.
We wanted to cancel the next meeting? Okay.
Well, let's take a step back because there's the dumpling and beer event in October. Is there anything that the commission needs to discuss before that event happens? Because it's
No, so that event is operated by our community development team, so they take the helm on that one. Now, we will have face painting at that event this year. We've typically done clay dumplings, but they've asked that we do face painting at this one. And so that would also be a good time to do the surveys and have that. So if commissioners wanted to volunteer to do that again, that would be a fantastic opportunity. You will run into quite a few non-residents, I'm sure, attending the booth. But I'm sure there's also quite a few residents that you'll be able to capture at that event.
So we'll have a booth over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
But last year, the turnout was not as good as the previous year, so I don't know how it's going to be this year. But
I would say if you're hosting, again, mother of 2 small kids, lots of birthday parties, if you're doing face painting, that line can be very long. So if we can find a way to hand out tickets to parents so that they don't have to stand in line with their kids,
Sure.
just to move things along so they can sample all the dumplings and go see the shows and things of that sort.
And then maybe we can be right next to them, so the parents can be waiting in the line, and while we grab all the kids.
When I worked the booth, and I don't remember when it was one of the first ones, and Matthew said, Rebecca said, let's get the surveys, and while the kids were coloring, then we asked the parents to fill it out, and they were very amenable, so that's a good time to grab them. It takes them 2 minutes tops, a minute,
We did the same thing.
yeah.
But yes, it's a good, face painting will be a good draw, good opportunity for us.
So I guess later we just send out emails to all commissioners and then see what time you're comfortable to come to
Sure.
the booth. Moving on to commissioner reports. Each commissioner may address the Community Service Commission and public on matters of general information or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and meetings they have attended. Starting with Commissioner Caput.
I just gave my report earlier, so never mind.
Next, Commissioner Barrantes.
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Duong.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Horta.
Thank you. On July 22nd, Mission San Gabriel hosted a teen depression symposium for teens and parents. It was advertised within the parish, and we partnered with a small group of mental health providers, well, private practice providers. And we had about 36 people in attendance, some parents with their children. We felt it was a real breakthrough because of the stigma that is really attached to mental health. But very pleased with the number that showed up. We have a small core team for 1LA, which is a broad-based organizing nonprofit, and our core team is made up of, I think, 5 to 6 parishioners. But it's our goal to continue to provide mental health workshops, and that also bring in providers, Department of Mental Health, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, also has an office of the whole care person. And so it was really well received. Would love to, our goal is to work up enough of these workshops to be able to open them up to the City of San Gabriel residents. A lot of our parishioners don't live in San Gabriel. They live in neighboring cities as far as Baldwin Park. But we find that people respond to these workshops if they feel comfortable, if they know the people that are offering the services or have some kind of relationship with them. So that's part of our goal as a core team, is to build that relationship and continue to offer these types of workshops. So for me, it was really exciting to see people actually show up and be willing to talk about mental health. Thank you.
And I saw there's on August 19th, there's a walk to LA event. Is that part of a mission?
Rebecca and I just had this conversation. The walk to LA is actually something that was sponsored by Los Pobladores and Mission San Gabriel many years ago. I think the last walk to LA was with Jason Poo, wasn't it? When he was, I remember him, maybe he was mayor. I don't remember quite who was mayor, but it was pre-COVID, and it was a collaboration between City of San Gabriel, Rebecca Perez, Community Services, and Placito Olvera, and I think the management company that manages Placito Olvera. And this year, I can share with you that I have been unable to contact any of those Los Pobladores, any family members. And we had our event, our 250th anniversary, 2021, and we still, was it 2021? Yes. We still didn't attract those family members. And Los Pobladores are the descendants of the original 11 families that left Mission San Gabriel, walked to downtown Los Angeles to form the city of San Gabriel, the city of Los Angeles. So we're trying to reach out. I know I'm trying on my side. Rebecca has been good about keeping that connection with Placito Olvera, but we won't have anything this year. Thanks for asking, though.
You're welcome. And also, Mission Church is open, and I think like you guys are all, opening some like tours for the visitors who's interested.
We have a self-guided tour. Yes, we opened on July 1st, self-guided tour. We have a new exhibit. The museum was curated by Dr. Stephen Hackle, and together with one of the Gabrielino descendants, Eve Chavez. So it's a very different exhibit that has been presented at Mission San Gabriel. It tells the Native American story alongside the evangelization of the Catholic Church in Los Angeles. So I encourage everyone to stop by and visit. It's short, but it's packed with a lot of information, a lot of history. And I was sharing with Commissioner Cabot that the next phase is to continue with our renovation of the whole campus as a whole. We really would like to attract more fourth grade students and present something that is more mission related. And so that's in the future.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I just wanted to spread the word out, and because Mission is the icon of the city, and we want to make sure like everybody knows the history and can be proud of it and honor it.
We're trying. It's new for us. This exhibit is new. Having it translated to Spanish and Vietnamese is new. Chinese is next on the list. It's difficult to roll out and implement all the programming that we would like because it's a staff of one, me. So that's a challenge, and volunteers, we have to rely on volunteers as well, but that's our goal. Our goal is to present a history of Mission San Gabriel different than it has been in the past.
Awesome. About myself, we went to the 4th of July. I went with Commissioner Cabot to the July membership meeting of Women's Political Caucus, SGV, with special speaker Norma Garcia. And one big takeaway for me in that meeting that she was talking about like we need to work more on our infrastructure to focus on water retaining instead of restricting the water usage, because last year like we were restricting the water usage a lot, that we lost a lot of trees, and those loss were not going to recover in like 100 years. So those are like, I like data, and then those are just really shocked to me, and I wanted more and more people be aware of that, and instead of trying to restrain the water, and we need to be more creative, and then have a government put more resources on the how to retain the water, and we need to have more trees, and then they can help us to grab the water, so we can be more. It won't be that desert kind of soil we have in the ground. On July 29, I went to the 6th U.S. Legacy Art Festival opening ceremony in Sheraton in San Gabriel. It was an event to promote cultural exchange between the U.S. citizens and also some international visitors. They're all like artists. It's just good that they brought a lot of visitors to the city and promote our city, and then bring the cultural exchange. And then on July 30th, the group, my husband, George Herrera Avila, he organized called San Gabriel for Change. We did a community cleanup at the Vincent Lugo Park again after half a year. And this time we had like 30 participants, high school students from Gabrielino High School or San Gabriel High School, and they were just really happy and then to be out there to clean the park. And then we did identify the homeless that we identified last time in the park is still being there, and then with more some trash, and then it's maybe some. I know it's a touchy issue, but like the area he's living is kind of like really close to the sidewalk that where some residents take to go to the park where students go home. So I just don't know if there any way that we can like improve that situation. And also there's some potholes, big potholes on the non-paved road right next to the what is called the river there? Yeah, the wash, and there are big potholes. And I would like the Public Works Department to be able to fix that so we don't have those tripping hazards.
Just a quick update on that. I do appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I relayed all of the information to our Public Works team. I wasn't exactly sure if that was city property or not. And it turns out that the areas where there's the small encampment and there's the wash away of that or corrosion of the walking path is not city-owned. There's two different agencies that manage those lands. Luckily, our parks manager has a great relationship with them and was able to get all of the information and pictures and exact locations to them so they can add that to their list of projects to manage. They've also implemented temporary fixes, so plywood over it with caution tape, at least to keep people safe until, it's not the prettiest fix, I will admit, but it is certainly a way to keep people safe in the interim until those agencies can get out to fix it.
Awesome. Do we know who are they?
It's the Army Corps of Engineers is one, and then I cannot remember off the top of my head who the other one is. I can certainly...
It's LA County and Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay. And then the fence, I think it's probably part of the LA County, and then
Correct, I believe the
right next to the
fence
wash,
was...
along the wash.
The chain link fence is part of the Army Corps
Okay,
portion or LA County portion.
okay. And then if we can like mention to them that the fence is what's kind of low, and then it's easy for people to like tip over, and then if they can reinforce on that. Thank you. And that concludes my report.
Can I just ask one thing, and you might know, I've heard that they're going to put a light in that lighthouse at the park in Vincent Lugo. It's like the playground there. Have you heard that?
I've not heard that. They are doing renovations right now on the the lighthouse. I've not heard that there's going to be a light.
Well, I was called to ask to write an article about it, and I didn't have time, so I
Okay.
don't know more about it than that. I thought maybe you might know. Never
Okay.
mind.
All right, moving on to staff comments. Staff members have the opportunity to address the commission and public on matters of general information and concern.
I'll make a very brief comment that, as I mentioned briefly earlier, we are in the process of hiring 2 new recreation supervisors. So we were blessed to make it out of the summer while offering all of these programs and offering even, I think, the most robust program we've offered in many summers with a very limited staff that we have. And our staff really pulled through and took on additional responsibilities to make sure that all of these programs were a success. And so we're looking forward to bringing these new staff on and seeing what their experience in other agencies and what they're doing and how we can improve. Obviously, we have some new staff already. We have a new part-time admin assistant and full-time admin assistant Mei-Ling, who's been with us for quite some time now, and then we have Jackie, our recreation specialist. So they're already making really drastic changes to our department and integrated really well into the team. So we anticipate that the same will happen with our recreation supervisors. Their changes will probably be the most direct changes that the public will see, since they're program oriented, so aquatics programs and our youth programs. That our parents will see directly those changes. So those will be up and coming. You'll hopefully get to meet them at the next meeting, assuming that they're available to be in attendance. And again, we're looking forward to being fully staffed for hopefully quite a few years, and then we can start implementing some of these changes that have been mentioned here at the commission meeting, and then of course at our staff meetings as well.
Awesome, thank you. And adjournment. The next regular community service commission meeting will be held on Monday, October 2nd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before the Community Service Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular meeting is now adjourned at 9:05.